Okay, Monday, 26th of May, 2025. So Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know. Money Monday, Bitcoin and everything else. Understand Bitcoin's first principles. Study Bitcoin. Now, many a time I've said to people that what they really need to do, what they ought to do, what they should do, what would be a wise idea to do, is to ask AI, ChatGPT for example, simply ask it, what are the 10 first principles of Bitcoin? Because I think it's fundamental to understand and study Bitcoin in great detail and understand the 0 to 1 principle behind this, where everything else is down here and Bitcoin is 10x better. Again, what's the motto of Money Monday? Bitcoin and everything else. To understand it's 10x better. There's no comparison out there already, and everything else is down here, but Bitcoin is up here. So if we understand the first principles, we understand how compelling it is, what it's all about. It's the starting point to understand it in greater detail. And I think once you get your head around these, everything else gradually, eventually falls into place with regards to the logic, the opportunity cost, the economics, the psychology, the maths and beyond. Because I say also fundamentally that Bitcoin is maths. Fundamentally, Bitcoin is mathematics. It's also maths, physics in terms of atoms, and computer science in terms of code, open source code to be exact. And also a little interesting mantra I picked up elsewhere from someone I used to follow a lot, Simon Dixon, that Bitcoin is money you can own, money you can spend, apolitical, deflationary, with a fixed supply, and censorship resistant. And these things will come back to here and there. But I like to ask and understand what are the 10 first principles of Bitcoin. And they are as follow. Absolute scarcity, decentralization of trust, censorship resistant, proof of work, POW, self-custody and sovereignty, permissionless innovation, time preference inversion, mathematical transparency, separation of money and state, and anti-fragility. Very interesting, some interesting buzzwords there. So, absolute scarcity, 21 million Bitcoin. Mathematically proven and fixed. It can't be changed. That's it. Physics, things can change, but this can't be changed. Computer science and code, it can't be changed. It's fixed at the protocol level. At the lowest level, in terms of the code, computer science, that's it. It can't be fixed. It can't be changed. Whereas the opposite to that, in the fiat world, there's no limit. That's why there's a nice meme in the Bitcoin space that Bitcoin has no top because fiat has no bottom. Meaning there's no limit to how many of these pounds and dollars and euros that can come into existence via quantitative easing or fractional reserve lending, the banking. Fractional reserve banking. There's no limit. But the opposite, again, the 10x thing here, Bitcoin's got a fixed supply. Interesting. Decentralization of trust. There's no central point of attack or failure in the network. So that means there's no CEO. There's no CEO that can be hit by a bus. There's no office that can be raided by the police and either of these things happens and the whole thing comes crashing down. There's no balance sheet. There's no risk of balance sheet. There's no risk of cash flow. There's no risk of marketing. No risk of sales. No risk of law or litigation. There's no risk of natural disaster. There's no risk of things leaking or half-life of money or inflation, things like that. It's totally isolated. It's like a buffer from reality almost, where these things don't affect it because there is no exposure. There is no CEO. So no CEO can be arrested or fall ill or lose the password or whatever else, and the whole thing comes crashing down. It doesn't exist. Therefore, if it doesn't exist, that means the risk of this thing happening is zero. If there's no CEO, then there's no risk of anything bad happening to the CEO. The whole thing comes crashing down. Interesting. Bitcoin removes the need for centralized institutions like banks or governments by distributing trust across a global network of nodes and miners. No single party controls it. Censorship resistance. The transactions, which some would say is free speech, transactions can't be blocked, cancelled, rejected, denied, you name it. Going from this wallet to that wallet, one person to another, peer to peer, you might hear that phrase thrown around here and there. There's no third party, again, decentralization. No other person that can stop that transaction. And people also, there's a meme in this base that people say Bitcoin is money for enemies as well. Because it's open source nature, decentralized, both you and other people who disagree with, or no matter what, can access it as well. This kind of goes into that open source part. It's open source code. No one can censor your transactions. Transactions cannot be blocked or reversed by any authority, because there is no authority. Again, there's no CEO, there's no office, there's no central point of attack or failure. As long as one node exists, Bitcoin remains operational and open to anyone, anywhere. I.e. open source code. Interesting. Proof of work, POW. This goes into that physics part I mentioned. Security and consensus are achieved through energy expenditure. Interesting. This ties the digital to the physical, anchoring Bitcoin in thermodynamic cost and making attacks extremely expensive. Now, extremely expensive, that's to do with the 51% attack. Whoever controls 51% of the network can do an attack. They can rewrite the code and manipulate it, basically. But let's go back a bit. Security and consensus are achieved through energy expenditure, meaning we have to do stuff in the real life, physics, energy, atoms, to create a Bitcoin. It can't just be created from thin air. It can't be. Energy is expended. Time, expertise, electricity, atoms, is expended to create more Bitcoin, solving equations to create more blocks, i.e. transactions, and as a reward the protocol gives them, the miners, Bitcoin, block reward, thus more Bitcoin is created. Very nice. Now, what that means is people have to expend energy to create it. The opposite in fiat, meaning there's a nice mantra in this space to say, or to ask, why work for a money that someone else can create freely? That can create free. Meaning, why am I spending my time, energy, expertise, calories, working, doing something to earn a money, euros, dollars, pounds, whatever, spending energy, real world time, energy, atoms, to earn this, where someone over there, the bank, the bond, QE, the governments, can create the same money from thin air, or arguably drastically less energy. Pressing a button, creating a loan, creating a mortgage, doing quantitative easing, central bank buying government's own bonds. Powerful stuff. And yet I'm expending energy, and yet they just click a button. Or it's part of the protocol that's built into the system. Whereas in Bitcoin, to earn Bitcoin, to mine Bitcoin, I have to spend energy. Or to earn Bitcoin, it's a job as usual and get paid in it. Meaning pushing energy into the world, doing physical things. Just how in the same way that a farmer can't wish for crops, wish for wheat to grow. He has to spend time and energy nurturing the crop, fending away pests and herbicides and pesticides, and growing it and tending to it and watering it. That's it. He has to exert energy for the crop to grow. He can't just wish it into existence like that. Energy has to be expended. That's quite important. Self-custody and sovereignty. Bitcoin allows individuals to hold their wealth without needing permission from a third party. Not your keys, not your coins is a common mantra. This mantra reflects the right to financial self-ownership. Not your keys, not your coins. Now, this is interesting. Bitcoin allows individuals to hold their wealth without needing permission from a third party. Meaning, we have the Bitcoins on exchange, for example. We bought it, we spent pounds, dollars, euros. We have it. We could then, but we don't have the keys. Don't have the password, let's say. If we don't have the password to that wallet, that bank account, you could say, then anyone can access those coins, any third party, because of the nature of the institution. But because of technology, because of Bitcoin itself, the killer app, so to speak, is that self-custody. I can hold my Bitcoin, let's say, under the mattress, to use an analogy, a common analogy, under the mattress, not physically but digitally. Therefore, no one has access to these coins. And then you can go one step further, saying, "Oh, it's online only. It's separated passwords and layers of security, things like that." meaning this money, these hours of my time, stored in Bitcoin, again, hours of my time, energy, physics, atoms, stored in Bitcoin, because I earned pounds, bought Bitcoin, put it in self-storage, self-custody. No one can access it, no other third party. I'm insulated more so from reality, not reality, I'm insulated more from other consequences in the world. Interest rates or political events over here or this and that, wars, whatever else. I just take this and move elsewhere. I would go deeper into like mind wallets and airtight security. But self-custody, fundamentally meaning that I don't rely on somebody else to hold my money for me, a bank account, for example. And therefore, I'm sovereign. I'm individual. I'm not relying on anyone else for wealth, for protection of wealth, for storing wealth, things like that. Akin to having cash under the mattress, but again in a digitized, dematerialized, not in physical way. That's quite that arguably is one of the killer apps of Bitcoin, where the ability to do that is one of a few other things that makes it 10x better than everything else, and the utility behind it, storing your time, savings mechanism. But that's another thing. Permissionless innovation. Anyone can build on, transact with, or use Bitcoin without needing approval. There's that thing again, no approval needed. It's public open source protocol. It's a public open source protocol like TCP/IP or HTTP, which is the backbone of the internet. TCP/IP, HTTP are protocols that the internet uses, and anyone can build on them. Just how in the same way anyone can buy a website and buy a web domain and build website on the internet. Anyone can build on top of Bitcoin in some fashion. Now, interestingly, there's a bit of an interesting feedback loop happening with Bitcoin and the network. As the price goes up, it attracts more users. More users means more builders. There's more people, more builders, more developers, let's say, including miners. The more miners there are, the higher the hash rate is, the more secure the network is, the more decentralized it is by more miners. Therefore, it creates a higher price. It creates potential for higher price to exist. And there's a positive feedback loop. And as more people are drawn to Bitcoin, they build on it. They incorporate it into their business model. MicroStrategy, or strategy, is a good example of this, where they've incorporated Bitcoin into their balance sheet, into the business model, into the financial institutions behind it. And on the 25th of November 2024, I did a video in Elzonte, and I mentioned that businesses will be using Bitcoin in the future. And I mentioned that in the future, when Apple are buying Bitcoin, they will figure out ways to integrate it into their business model. And one way they will do it is put an Apple wallet on the iPhone that uses Bitcoin, and a Bitcoin wallet, a Bitcoin native wallet on the Apple Pay, and they'll probably skim off some fees here and there to collect their own Bitcoin and build their own reserve. But anyone can do that. Again, Bitcoin is computer science, open source code. Anyone can do this. Anyone can build on, transact with, censorship resistant, you use Bitcoin without needing approval. Decentralization. It is a decentralized network. No approval needed. But also because it's open source code. Open source code, computer science. What computer science? Maths. Oh, interesting. Time preference inversion. Now, this is an interesting one, actually. Bitcoin encourages saving over consumption. Interesting. Fixed supply and predictable issuance. So that's fundamental as well. Fixed supply and predictable issuance reward long-term thinking over short-term gain. Meaning deflationary. Meaning the cost of one Bitcoin increases in purchasing power over time. And there's this general mantra in this space to say, never sell your Bitcoin. The maths and logic behind that is opportunity cost. Had you a Bitcoin today and in the future is worth more, you could say, than in the past in terms of purchasing power. So, for example, a house, keep it very broad. In 2010 might have cost you, say, 100,000 Bitcoin. Pick a number, 100,000. But today, 15 years later, you could buy a house, for, let's say, 1 Bitcoin, 2 Bitcoin, 3 Bitcoin. How? Well, where? Because the price in dollar terms has gone up in Bitcoin. Interesting. 100,000? 1, 2, or 3. What kind of house? What does that mean? It means that on a Bitcoin standard, things get cheaper. A Bitcoin standard meaning your new denominator is not pounds, euros, dollars. You're not pricing things in pounds, dollars, and euros. You're pricing things in Bitcoin. And over time, these things, house, book, car, takes fewer and fewer Bitcoins, let's say, or Satoshis, but Bitcoins, to buy. It's deflationary. You're being rewarded by thinking long term. Now, there's an interesting thing in the Bitcoin space, another mantra, another meme, so to speak, that says, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. Again, because it's decentralized and it's open source code, you can't change it because the physics, the fixed code, you can't change it. Therefore, you have to bend to it and you change. And one way is to go onto a Bitcoin standard and start pricing things in Bitcoin. Pricing things in Satoshis. So 1 Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshis. Very nice. So the things around you over time takes fewer and fewer Satoshis, fewer and fewer Bitcoins to buy. That's powerful. It's deflationary. What did I say at the start? Money you can own, money you can spend, fixed supply, political, decentralized, censorship resistant, and deflationary, meaning it buys more stuff over time. So then, and this is some very interesting economics here, you're incentivized never to sell. You're really incentivized to use it as a collateral, borrowing against it, never selling that pristine collateral, never selling that pristine asset. And some even go as far to say that Bitcoin is pristine collateral in a financial sense, where it is very liquid, it's accepted by anyone, and there's always a market, there's always a buyer, 24/7. Powerful stuff. So Bitcoin encourages savings over consumption. Really, it also pushes you to think, is this thing you're going to buy really worth it in terms of the Bitcoin and the potential future price of Bitcoin? Therefore, vendors are encouraged to sow as many trust signals and as high quality products as possible to really persuade people to part with their Bitcoin. So quality things will increase in quality because they're going to persuade you to part with your ever increasing Bitcoin. Okay, but also other things at play. For you to be willing to spend your Bitcoin, this thing you're buying has to be more valuable than it. It incentivizes the vendors to have more trust signals and increase the quality of products, but also it forces you to rethink what is valued to you, what's important to you. And you could argue really only two things are more important than Bitcoin, which is health and time. Those two things are much more scarce than Bitcoin. Time, as in you've only got a certain number of lives and decades, and health, because without that you have nothing. I had this interesting thought experiment. I think I did a video about this. I had to say and to ask, all the money in the world, but no health. Or amazing health, but no money. Which of these two extremes is more palatable, more desirable? Well, it's something in the middle, arguably. And that highlights the importance of health. Interesting. Health over wealth and vice versa. So then you could say, well, you spend this Bitcoin to have a life-saving operation. Because that health is more valuable and your life is more valuable than the Bitcoin. You can go even further to say, well, how can we leverage against the Bitcoin, use it as collateral to then pay for the operation? But that's a little more nuanced. But these kind of things start to appear, these kind of thought experiments, these opportunity cost calculations come into play as you understand more about the Bitcoin and the trajectory it's on. Mathematical transparency. All rules, issuance schedules, and balances are visible and verifiable on chain. There's no ambiguity or backdoor accounting. Now, interesting word accounting there, because I remember realizing that Bitcoin is triple entry accounting. I as a node runner have a record of transactions. So does the person who's received the Bitcoin has a record of transactions, or other nodes, and the network itself has a record of transactions. But that's a little more nuanced. But mathematical transparency. All rules, issuance schedules, and balances are visible and verifiable. Now, this is fascinating because we can expand on this to say, we know what the inflation rate of Bitcoin will be in 6 minutes, 6 hours, 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, 60 years, 600 years. Oh. Because it's all maths. What did I say earlier? Bitcoin is maths, physics, and computer science. Because it's maths, we know the halvening cycles, essentially. We know how many Bitcoin will come into existence between now and the next halvening. Meaning we know at what rate per year Bitcoin will be scarcer and scarcer. Again, 21 million. Meaning that's the fixed supply, but how many are in existence today? Oh, I forgot the number. 95%, something like that. And we know almost to the day, to the hour even, almost, when it will reach the next halvening and the halvening after that. When the block reward, how many Bitcoin each miner is rewarded, will be cut in half. We can program that, and that's essentially inflation. We can calculate that. That means that we can calculate what the inflation will be in 16 years. Pick a bigger number, 30 years, 32 years, whatever. We can predict that. We know that, and then we can price and plan accordingly. We can price and plan accordingly. Because the opposite is true in the fiat world. We don't know what the interest is going to be or the inflation is going to be in 6 days. We've got an idea. What about 6 months? No, educated guesses. 6 years? 60 years. Anything can happen in 60 years. But we know with mathematical certainty, again, Bitcoin is maths, what the inflation will be in 60 years. We know what the block reward will be in 60 years. We know roughly how many blocks, how many transactions, or how many blocks there will be in existence in 60 years. Whoa, that's math. Bitcoin is maths and computer science. Therefore, we know what the future is. There's more certainty with Bitcoin. There's more mathematical certainty with Bitcoin because the computer science dictates what's going to happen. And we can all see, we can verify this with our node. We can see the code itself. Again, it's open source code. We can see it. Interesting. Separation of money and state. Bitcoin embodies the principles that money should not be controlled by governments. It's a neutral protocol like language or mathematics. It's a neutral protocol. Bitcoin embodies the principle that money should not be controlled by governments, third party. Because the idea is you can't fundamentally trust people. Again, it's trust. I can't trust them or whoever party, whichever, to not mismanage, let's say, finance, mismanage fiscal policy, for example. We can't trust them, or they can't trust each other, or whatever else. So if no one can truly be trusted to not tariff, isolate, whatever, manipulate, then if no one can be trusted, then that means no one should be trusted. Again, decentralization. There's no one. Bitcoin is optimized for security and decentralization. Therefore, it separates money from state. Again, it's open codes. It's computer science, open source code, meaning anyone can use it and can build on it. And because it's mathematically sound, it's on its own trajectory. And there's a nice meme. There was a nice meme in this space about 10 years ago that said that Bitcoin is a honey badger of money. It doesn't care. It just does its thing. Another meme that said TikTok next block. Things can happen out here and there in the world. Happen in other countries, other continents. But Bitcoin, it can be banned over here, over there. It can be embraced over there. And it just continues. It just continues. Separation of money and state. No person, policy, institution, party, individual can control it. You can't ban Bitcoin. You can only ban yourself from it. It's like banning oxygen or gravity. You can't ban it. It's a force of nature. It's Mother Nature. It just exists. To truly ban Bitcoin will be to switch off the internet. In the same way, we can't ban oxygen. We can't ban gravity. It's a neutral protocol, like language or mathematics. It just is. It's a force of nature. In the same way, I can't stop 2 + 2 equaling 4. It just is. And anti-fragility. Bitcoin grows stronger through attacks, forks, disputes, we could say even, bans and criticism. Each challenge sharpens its code, community, and resilience. Because of its decentralized nature, it's very adaptable to situations and events. So, for example, in 2020 or 2021, it was that mining was essentially banned in China. Bitcoin mining was banned in China. And the miners relocated and the hash rate took a hit. The hash rate is in the security strength, we could say. But then 6 months later, it recovered. The hash rate, the strength had recovered. The miners had relocated. Remember that feedback loop here I talked about. If something happened, if there are any obstacles or challenges, people, again humans, they just find a way. They find an alternative. Nature finds a way, to quote the famous film. Because everyone has aligned, in sync, incentives, everyone acts inadvertently in the best interest of the network. There's an interesting meme in this space also that states Bitcoin is inevitable. It's inevitable because as people understand more, they study it more, they have more, they want to inadvertently enforce this positive feedback loop. It just makes the thing stronger. And when we say aligned incentive, it's interesting. It's very, very, very subtle. As you understand more about Bitcoin, or as you buy more of Bitcoin, you buy £10 worth. Just pick a small number. You buy some, so you have to learn about it. You're incentivized to learn more, study it more. Okay, you study it more, your conviction increases because you understand more stuff. So you think, actually, it's a good idea to buy this. Understand the first principles. I'm going to buy some more. Buy £100 worth. You buy more, so the responsible thing to do is to learn more because you have a bigger position. So you always want to have your knowledge greater than your position in something. So you learn more. You learn more first principles. You understand more. You watch more videos and podcasts. Wow. Your conviction increases as a result, a direct result of that. So actually, this is a very, very good idea, and I need more of this. Okay, you buy more, so you're more responsible to learn. You have more responsibility to learn more. You learn more, you buy more, and then as you buy and understand what it is, because it's decentralized nature, more and more people are incentivized to keep Bitcoin as it is. No hard forks, no software forks, meaning no splintering of the network, no people going off and doing or less of that, and less of it is likely to happen because everyone's incentivized to have consensus, because everyone's incentivized for this thing not to change. Therefore, the first principles stay true and don't change. Therefore, they are more incentivized to keep it as it is. And the longer it stays as it is, the better. Because that reinforces that mathematical certainty. Again, we know what the inflation rate and issuance is going to be 6 days, 6 years, 6 months, 60 years, 600 years from now. It becomes more and more certain because everyone wants the same thing. As they learn more and buy more, they want it to not change because then the first principles become null and void. Interesting. Okay. So then we look at the opposite of these things. So Bitcoin. Remember this analogy? Everything is down here, Bitcoin's up here. The motto of the day, Bitcoin and everything else, Money Monday. So the opposite, look at Bitcoin first principle, absolute scarcity. And opposite, pound, euros, dollars, and other fiat currencies. Fiat by decree, interesting Latin word. Fiat has no cap, no limit. Central banks can print unlimited money. Supply expands based on political and economic decisions. Quantitative easing, stimulus, inflation is baked in. Because there's no limit to how much fiat or pounds, euros, dollars can exist, that means inflation is baked in. It's going to happen. If you're using these as a denominator, you're losing purchasing power. Look at the half-life of money. Rule of 72. Whatever the inflation rate is, 6-7%. 72 divided by 7, 10 point something, 9 point something. What does that mean? It means that in 9-10 years, your purchasing power decreases by 50%. Inflation is baked in. Whoa, that's powerful. Decentralization of trust. Fiat, pounds, euros, dollars, requires trust, hope. Please, please do a good job. Please, don't screw things up for me. For any by any metric, any institution, anything like that. Fiat requires trust in central banks, governments, and commercial banks. These entities can mismanage, lie, collapse. Power is centralized and opaque, obfuscated. It's hard to see, hard to understand all this jargon. What does that mean? These entities can mismanage, lie, or collapse. By trusting in institutions, you're exposing yourself to them not screwing things up, to them doing things, to them managing things well. You're trusting. Trust. Please do a good job. Please do a good job. Please do a good job. But because of Bitcoin's first principle, there is no trust needed. Like, how many times do you have to trust gravity to work? How many times do you have to trust? How many times do you have to trust water to be wet? How many times do you have to trust 2 + 2 to equal 4? It just is. And the stronger the aligned incentives, the more certainty there is. Censorship resistance. Banks can block, reverse, freeze, or deny transactions. Capital controls and blacklists are routine tools of state and finance. Capital controls. Well, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself, but banks can block, reverse, freeze, or deny transactions. Some would say that transactions are free speech. Interesting. Yes, someone doesn't like him or them, whatever else, in the existing network, the transactions can be blocked, reversed, frozen. Just look at what happened in late February 2022. Or look at what happened in Canada in December 2021, I believe it was. Likewise, you could also say, look what happened in Cyprus in 2013. Interesting. Proof of work. Fiat is created at near zero cost via keyboard strokes. No real-world energy or effort backs its issuance. It's trust-based, not cost-based. Interesting. Like I said with a farmer, the farmer just can't wish for the crops to exist. They have to put time and energy into it. Why work for money spending time and energy, burning calories, that somebody else can print freely? Interesting. Self-custody and sovereignty. Fiat custody always involves intermediaries, third parties, banks, apps. Holding physical cash is limited, surveilled, and being phased out. Interesting. Bank runs, bail-ins, and asset freezes happen. So when your money is separated, mathematically separated, computer-wise separated, you're insulated from these events. They are less likely to affect you. They can't affect you directly, but inadvertently, through indirect means, yeah. Interesting. Self-custody, yeah, okay. Permissionless innovation. Building on fiat rails, banking apps, new services, fintech or neon banks, requires licenses, KYC AML, know your customer, anti-money laundering, compliance. Regulatory approval. Gatekeepers throttle innovation. This kind of goes into the open source nature of the code. Anyone can take it and build upon it. Quite powerful. No gatekeepers. Open source code. Time preference. Fiat encourages spending and building debt due to inflation. Saving money leads to loss of purchasing power over time. Consumerism is built into the system. Saving money leads to loss of purchasing power. There was an interesting quote by Robert Kiyosaki that talked about savers are losers. And the way the world is now, as it is, the contemporary world, we want to be, interestingly, the smart thing. Saving money leads to loss of purchasing power. A rule of 72 again. Because inflation is baked in, if inflation is 7%, it loses purchasing power over time. So holding money, it loses purchasing power. These pounds buy fewer things over time. Whereas Bitcoin is the opposite. These Satoshis, these percentages of a Bitcoin, buys more things over time. The vendor is incentivized to make high quality things. And you're incentivized to make sure this transaction is worthwhile. Time and health. A mathematical transparency. Fiat rules are arbitrary and changeable. Monetary policies based on shifting models, political pressure, secret meetings, FOMC and ECB decisions. Again, we don't know what the interest rate is going to be 6 months from now, 6 years from now, 16 years from now, 60 years from now. But we don't know what the inflation rate of Bitcoin is going to be 60 years from now. Mathematical certainty. Again, it's open source code, computer science. We know what it's going to be. Arbitrary and changeable, the rules of fiat. Yeah, it depends who's in charge, what's happening here, crises, this, that, and this. It's uncertain. We don't know. But with Bitcoin, we have absolute mathematical certainty. Separation of money and state. Fiat is created, controlled, and weaponized by governments. Again, a good example of that is look what happened in Canada in November 21, December 21, or I guess January 22, around that time. It funds wars, bailouts, surveillance, and enforces state power over the economy. Essentially, if it can be printed for free, then any idea, any policy, and legislation can be funded. Any policy, any idea, any legislation can be funded. Any policy, any legislation, any idea can be funded. Okay. Anti-fragile. Fiat systems are fragile. They rely on confidence, trust. Hyperinflation, debt defaults, and banking crises are systematic risk. When trust breaks, systems collapse fast. When trust breaks. If there's no trust in the system, how can it break? If there's a 1% chance of something happening, 1%, that is infinitely riskier than 0%. Impossible. If it's 1/10 of 1/1,000,000th of a percent, there's still a risk. Versus over here, there's no risk, so it's not a factor to consider because there's no risk of it happening. So interesting things. And the other interesting thing with it is predictability by design. We can predict things into the future and understand where Bitcoin is going to go into the future. The blocks, the block rewards, the issuance rate, the halvening cycles, things like that. We have certainty built in. We have this mathematical constant, this thing that doesn't change, that we can build and do economic planning in the future based on. We know what's going to happen. We can build businesses and make decisions in the future because there's mathematical certainty to Bitcoin. Remember, Bitcoin is maths, physics, and computer science, fundamentally. So can we know inflation rate in 6 months? Yes. Block subsidy is pre-coded. Halvening schedule is fixed. Currently is 0.85 annually. That means the number of Bitcoin is increasing by less than 1% per year until it gets to 21 million, which would be, some would say by 2030, by 2035, 99% of Bitcoin will be mined. After that, from 2035 to year 2140, will be that 1%. But it's that long trail there. But this is next to nothing. So we know what the inflation rate of Bitcoin will be in 6 years. One halvening will occur in 2028. Reducing issuance to 1.5625. 1.5625 Bitcoin per block per every 10 minutes. You could say inflation will drop to roughly 0.4% annually. That means, again, deflationary. Purchasing power increases. 1 Bitcoin buys more things because it becomes increasingly rarer and scarce. 0.5% increased per year. But then after that, in 2032, 0.02 inflation per year. Wow. So in 60 years, the issuance will be virtually zero. Roughly 0.0000002. That's 20 satoshis. And there's million. Million. Yeah, 200 satoshis. 200 satoshis per block. All 21 million Bitcoin will be nearly mined. Inflation approaches 0%. Again, it's inflationary. 1 Bitcoin increases in purchasing power. What's more valuable? My time, my health, or Bitcoin? Those economic decisions will be almost thrust upon us. Again, we don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes us. So Bitcoin issuance is algorithmic. A new block every 10 minutes, roughly 10 minutes. Block rewards halves every 21,000 blocks, roughly 4 years. Entire supply schedule is known since 2009. It's in the code, not political whim. It's in the code, mathematical certainty. It's open source code. But it's not subject to changes of fashions or styles or policies or trends in 60 years from now. The politics and society and culture 60 years from now. No, it's maths. Just how today 1 plus 1 equals 2, and that is true today, and it will be true in 60 years from now, will be true in 600 years from now. Remember again, Bitcoin is fundamentally maths, physics, atoms, and computer science, code, open source code. But fiat is opposite, like weather. Again, this dichotomy, again, remember the 0 to 1 principle is 10x better. We don't know what inflation is going to be in 6 months. Influenced by political shifts, trends, patterns, whatever else. Supply shocks, decisions. 6 years, no. This thing can happen. QE, rate hikes, cuts, debt crises, recessions, temporary fiscal emergencies. Temporary. 60 years, difficult. Well, look at 1965 versus today. Political regimes come and go. Future inflation is unknowable. So that means planning anything for 60 plus years is extremely difficult. Wow. Why? Inflation is fiat inflation is based on monetary policy. Subjective and reactive. Ums and ahs and kind of depends. Let's wait and see. It's driven by human decision making, not algorithmic constraint. Depends on people at the time. Not maths. Again, what's Bitcoin? Maths, physics, computer science. So then inflation schedule, fixed and public. Bitcoin. Unknown and flexible. Fiat. Long-term predictability, 100%. We know what's going to happen. Fiat is speculative. Transparency. Code, open source code, verifiable. With nodes, whatever else. Obscure and depends on complex, permission, structures and systems, understandings behind the scenes. Trust basis. Code and math. But there it is again, code and math. Maths, physics, code, computer science. Promises, central bank promises. Risk of debasement, 0, unless protocol changes. But that's the key. The more people there are, the more they want to keep it as it is, not to rock the boat. High, fiat is high, very high risk of debasement, historically inevitable. Whoa, it's built in, it just is, it's standard. 0 risk of debasement. Some people view Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation. Very nice. Well, we can go deeper. It's a hedge against debasement, being monetary expansion. We can go even deeper to say that Bitcoin is a hedge against entropy, things breaking down like a bucket, and that's got a leak in it. Things costing money over time, but Bitcoin is thermodynamically sound. There's no leakage. It's powerful. So Bitcoin is not just better, it's fundamentally different. Again, that 0 to 1 idea. Monetary supply, issuance mechanism, ownership, self-custody, access, inflation, settlement finality. That's interesting because Bitcoin, you know how when you pay for a credit card, it takes a few days for that payment to appear on the statement. That finality is T, or transaction, plus 2 days. But Bitcoin's finality is, arguably you could say, 10 minutes. A better way of looking at it is 1 hour. For mathematical reasons, 1 hour. But that's interesting. Finality, irreversible in 10 minutes. You could argue 60 minutes, but technicalities. But fiat is delayed, reversible, chargeback prone. Interesting. Trust model, trust in maths, code, trust in maths, code and physics. Audibility, fully audible by anyone, anytime. A bit of technology, a bit of tech savviness needed and nodes, but it's doable. Security costs, paid in energy and time. Now that's fascinating. I had this meme, this picture that talked about how with Bitcoin and the fiat, we're replacing securing ownership of assets from trust and institutions, and you could argue war and violence, to maths and electricity to secure wealth, to secure our time. And because these things are much less destructive and easier cost to bear in society than trust and promises and war, risk of war, then this method, because it's much less damaging, much more scalable even, it's worth every Satoshi. It's worth everything. It's worth all the protection in the world. This kind of goes into what I said earlier, where the more you learn about it, the more you are willing to buy because your conviction increases. And as that happens, you realize that actually it's a better and better idea to move away from fiat into Bitcoin, because you understand more of the first principles. These are what we've discussed about. And you realize that I want more of those, the first principles, more certainty, as opposed to trust and promises. Trusts and promises. Monetary policy changes impossible without global consensus. Again, that aligned incentive. Everyone wants Bitcoin to stay the same. Governance, voluntary, decentralized, opt-in. Opt-in. You don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. No one forces Bitcoin upon you. It's open source code. You choose it. That's powerful. Neutrality, apolitical, neutral protocol. Intergenerational utility, interesting word. Preserves value across decades. That's interesting. And fiat steals from the future via debt and inflation. You could even argue to say that it's intergenerational tyranny. Very fancy phrase. Intergenerational tyranny. Essentially, borrowing from the future to pay for things today. Oh, interesting. Okay. But you see, Bitcoin can move value and store your value, your time, let's say, through space and time. I work 1 hour of time of my life. I earn money. I put that time into Bitcoin, put that money into Bitcoin from that hour, and I can access it in the future. But again, with the inflation rate, 7%, 7%, rule of 72, seven or so years, or 10 years. In 10 years from now, that 1 hour, because of deflation, the first principles will be worth more in terms of purchasing power. That 1 hour of work today, stored in Bitcoin, in the future, will be worth more because of its first principles. And we also say, because Bitcoin is a knower asset, you just need to know the secret key, secret passwords really, I can move this Bitcoin around the world easily without any worry. Put it in my head, put it on a piece of paper, whatever else you name it. I can move it around. Whereas fiat doesn't store value through time. That's historical. That's called inflation. Inflation and also shrinkflation. But you can move it through space. I take a pound coin, 10 pounds, I can move it around, but not through space. No, not through time. In 7 years, in 10 years, that £1 buys fewer things. In 7-10 years, that one Bitcoin buys more things. And we've got 15 years of history to prove that as well. That one bit, again, the house, 2010, 100,000 coins. Today, house could cost 1 or 2 or 3 Bitcoin. We can move value, storing our time, through time and space with Bitcoin. So it's intergenerational utility, yes. Because there's another mantra in the space of Bitcoin that says, we don't hold Bitcoin for our first name, meaning us, we hold it for our last name, our generation, subsequent generation, next generation. Time preference, low. Encourages savings, patience. Again, Bitcoin, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. Technological nature, internet native, open source, programmable. Again, what's Bitcoin? Maths, physics, and computer science, open source code. Yes. Bitcoin isn't trying to beat fiat at fiat's game. It's playing a whole new game where fiat can't even sit at the table. It's the first monetary system born from the internet, not retrofitted into it. Fiat is a buggy patch of legacy systems. Bitcoin is a clean slate protocol money, neutral, anti-fragile, and borderless, censorship resistant. Move value across the world. Powerful stuff. Now, there's an interesting quote in the space. I can picture there's an interesting video. I can picture who said it, but I can't remember his name. Mises. There's some famous economist that talked about how what will need to happen is private sector code, open source code, will need to find a sly, roundabout way to separate money from state. I can't remember who said it. I remember the clip, but the face, but not the name. But finding a sly, roundabout way to separate money from state. Can't be done with force, but can be done with code. The digital world we live in, digital native world. And that means that we don't want to, another quote here, I'm paraphrasing, by Buckminster Fuller, an American futurist. He talked about how I'm paraphrasing it now, don't try to compete within the system, build another system that makes it obsolete, makes it redundant. Same idea with this. We're building a system over here that makes this over here redundant, the fiat system. Because again, the name of the daily vlog here, Monday, Bitcoin and everything else, just everything else. It's Bitcoin and everything else. 0 to 1. Bitcoin is 10x better than anything else out there. It's not marginally better. Oh, it's this but a little different. It's this but faster. It's this bit easier. No, it's 10x. 10x based on what? The first principles, as I just discussed about. That's why it's fundamental to understand Bitcoin first principles. Study Bitcoin. Study. And then you enter inadvertently, and that feedback loop kicks in, and that incentive kicks in, that arms race of knowledge and position size, whatever else, it kicks in. Powerful stuff. Fundamental stuff to understand. Study Bitcoin. I did a video as well, a month or 2 or 3 ago, talking about Rocco's basilisk. Essentially, it's this possibility of regret in the future by not taking action. By understanding these things but doing nothing about it, it creates regret in the future. That's powerful. It's powerful. The more you understand about it by not taking any action, that creates regret. And this, the opposite, is being almost reckless, this large position. Because fundamentally, your position in anything really, your knowledge in that thing needs to be greater than your position in it. Your circle of competence needs to increase. So the principle there is, by studying it, and just on the sidelines watching as what happens in the market, in the developments, in the wider world, in the legislation and technology, things built on top of it. Again, it's a permissionless system to build on, and you're just watching it, watching the world go by. That risks creating immense amount of regret. Powerful. Study Bitcoin. But otherwise, Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff mentioned now. Subscribe for more, and you will see me tomorrow.